sales approach today. We're going to give a couple minutes for folks to join in. And while we wait, I'd love to do an icebreaker just because I love to get to know our panelists a little bit better. And I want to know the best day you had recently. This is a really good one. Victor, I'm going to start with you. What's the best day you had recently?
That's an easy one. On April 26th, a few months ago, my daughter was born.
Oh.
So she's my first little girl, my first kid. And so without a doubt, that was the best day, probably of a very long time, if ever.
Oh, congratulations. That's a good story. Kenny, can you top that? Should have went with Victor last.
I can't top it, but I can equate to it. My son was born December 17th, late last year. So very similar feeling, definitely one of the best days.
Love that. Congratulations to you both.
Thank you.
Anastasia, any pets or children?
No children. My best day is yet to come. I'm getting married on the 12th of August. So it's kind of like a future best day that I'm going to have.
I love that. Congratulations. Wow, big life moves for everyone here.
Yeah.
Brad, last but not least, your best day recently.
Yeah, there's no way I can come close to Victor and Kenny because I don't have children. But I will say one of my children, that I'll grab real quick. His birthday's a couple of months away. Frank turns 18 in a few months, so we're looking forward to his. Very similar to you, Anastasia. We're looking forward to his future date.
Love it. That's so cute. Well, we've got a lot of milestones with our speakers today. So you folks watching, you get to know them a little bit better. I'm going to get into it. Let's get started so you can start hearing this content right away. Today's event is hosted by the team at Modern Sales Pros. That's me and a couple of other really awesome folks. For those of you who are not familiar, Modern Sales Pros is the world's largest and, of course, highest quality community for those in sales management, sales leadership. Sorry. If I'm echoing, please let me know. Sales and revenue operations, and sales enablement. Those are our Modern Sales Pros. And our mission is to create an environment for our members to answer questions they'd struggle to solve on their own, help them see around corners they might not even know are there. And we do that through awesome live sessions like the one you're at here, where you get to see dogs in real life, in-person events and our quarterly summits, which we just had in July. And if you are not a part of MSP, you'll be invited to join after this. And this event would not be possible without the awesome folks at Sonar. They are sponsoring this event, and Brad is going to give us a little spiel about Sonar and why it's so awesome.
Yeah, I'll keep my spiel short because we have so much to jump into. But as always, Taylor and the entire MSP team, thank you all for putting these on. They get better and better every time we have them. And I always come away, honestly, smarter than when I started because I get to learn from very smart folks like we have on this call. But in short, Sonar, we're a change intelligence platform. Very fitting for today's topic, of course, but we help operations teams operationalize and harness their go-to-market technology and all the processes that are surrounding that in order to make your go-to-market engine run fast. We'll jump into some of those examples probably throughout the entire call today, but we're excited to always partner with the MSP team and, again, have very smart individuals on this call, much smarter than myself, so I'm excited to hear today.
Well, thank you. That was quick and concise. Love it. So great to have you here as a sponsor. Excited to dive into the content. But before I let you all just run with it and I leave the stage, a quick housekeeping note, or several. First, this panel is being recorded. We're never going to let this information just float out into the ether. You'll have it forever. You can share it with your favorite people and your least favorite people if you're one of those. You can also use the Q&A panel. We love for our panelists to be really interactive with our audience. So if you go over to the chat panel, just type in whatever you want. You can put your questions in there if you'd like. You can react with some emojis. I love to see some emojis. We see Brad waving. We see Brandon. New kid for Brandon as well. Congratulations, Brandon. So try and be as interactive as possible. Give that energy on a Monday morning to our panelists. So I'm going to go backstage now, and I'm going to let our wonderful moderator, Victor, take it away. Victor, all yours, and I will see y'all at the end.
All right. I'm really excited to be here with you guys today. Really excited to dive into this topic of change intelligence and really making sure that the investments that we make in RevOps actually stick. My name is Victor Defier. I am a managing director at Winning by Design. I will be the moderator for today's session. Real quick background on me. So I am, like I said, an MD of Winning by Design. We are a sales consulting firm based out of Silicon Valley, working primarily with SaaS organizations to help them figure out go-to-market strategy, build the right processes, train their teams on those processes, and then make them stick through investments in building out the new behaviors into technology, or making sure that the managers have the skills that they need to reinforce those processes. So it's a very big topic for us at Winning by Design. We do a lot of work with our clients that are around this idea of change intelligence and change management. And really, it's where the rubber meets the road in many respects with our work. So I'm excited to talk to the panelists today about how they tackle various change issues in their organizations, and learn a little bit more about Sonar, and then also think about how we can apply some of these ideas to our respective businesses. So that's a little quick intro on me. Maybe we can introduce the other panelists. Kenny, you want to get started? Quick introduction.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Victor. Hey, everyone. My name's Kenny. Background, started my career in sales and sales operations. So I've managed Salesforce instance before, and definitely experienced all of the discussion points that we'll be talking today. But today I run a company called Kicksaw. We're one of the fastest and greatest Salesforce and RevOps consulting practices out there. Trying to kind of revolutionize consulting, how it's brought to the market, and how we work with companies. So I'm looking forward to being here today.
Excellent. Anastasia, what about you?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here, first of all. I didn't think they'd invite me back after last time, but here I am. So I'm based in Manchester, UK. A bit like Kenny, I started off my career in sales, and then I started working with revenue generating teams in companies of all sizes, to actually make sure that they work together nicely and all towards the same goal. I'm currently with a company called Karoo. We build really, really gorgeous recruitment tech. So we've got a platform that connects people to their ideal candidates. I'm a team of one, so I think slightly different challenges here to the rest of the panelists. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
Great. So great to have you along, Anastasia. And then finally, Brad, maybe a quick introduction as well.
Absolutely. Again, Victor, thanks for moderating and keeping us all on track. Hey, folks, great to meet you all. My name is Brad Smith, the co-founder and CEO of Sonar Software, as well as the online community Wizards of Ops. A lot of folks know our community, very similar to Modern Sales Pros. We actually collaborate quite a bit with Pete and the entire MSP team, especially with Taylor, who helps run all these events. A little bit about myself, similar to everyone here. Started my career and my journey in sales. Very quickly transitioned over to operations, spent a little bit of time in the Salesforce consultant ecosystem as well. And the biggest thing that I've learned along my entire journey is that operations is hard. Salesforce is hard. Change is hard. We're going to talk a lot about change today, but a lot of the findings that I have discovered in my career, we have taken into how we service our community with WizOps and how we service our customers at Sonar to make sure that operations folks can be the best at what they do, which is helping go-to-market teams bring in new revenue. Victor,
Excellent. So I'm really excited to dive into the topic for today. The agenda, as you can see on the slide there, is all about first. I want to start off by defining change intelligence, making sure that we're all talking about the same thing, right? And then I want to spend a little bit of time going into how it aligns go-to-market teams. So really thinking practically about how go-to-market teams can leverage change intelligence to help achieve their goals. And then finally, talking a little bit about how change intelligence allows you to build stronger processes, future-proof your tech stack, really make sure that the changes that you're making within the RevOps changes that you're making within your organizations really stick. But before we dive into all of those topics, I think it's absolutely essential to make sure that we establish some clear definitions here. And so, Brad, you are the most experienced person here in this world of change intelligence, building an organization that is a change intelligence platform. Maybe you can help us with some definitions. How do you define change intelligence, and how do you think about it compared to change management, a term that I'm sure most of us are familiar with?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I'll start by saying that they're not equally the same, but I will piggyback on that and say they're very dependent upon each other. I think for a lot of us, especially if you've ever spent time in the consulting arena, we've heard change management. Yes, we need to go and design processes, and how we implement those and effectively get that change done is essentially what change management is. I'll give a little bit of a different analogy here that usually helps folks kind of grasp the difference between both. It's also quite fitting. I told the folks on the call today, I'm actually working from home. Usually we're in the office. I have a lot of contractors here in the back of my house working on a house project. And it's kind of easy to make a very similar story out of that exact thing that we're doing for our house. Change management being, we worked with some consultants and some actually architects to help design what this beautiful new thing is that we're changing to our house. We're taking the roof off, we're removing a few rooms, or removing some walls, and we have drawn up this very beautiful, in a vacuum, way of going about and implementing this project. That's the change management part of it. What have we designed? What have we made sure that we think is the right solution for ourselves, for our house, for our customers? The change intelligence side of that is, how do we effectively get that change into the existing scenario and making sure that it sticks and it works well with all the other components? This is where we'd like to start using this blueprint analogy. You would never go and take the roof off your house. Like, I'm looking right through that window right now and seeing a little bit of my roof removed right now. You would never think about going to do that without having the right blueprint in place to understand how taking that one roof off is going to also impact all the other pieces that the roof has to do with things. I bet there's a little bit of electricity running through there, maybe some plumbing, maybe everything else that all goes into construction. I'm clearly not a construction expert. There's a reason I'm in software and not in house design. But the change intelligence piece of that is making sure you know what changes you're creating with change management are going to actually help. The last thing you want to do is go and create a beautiful design and then go into implementation of it and realize, oh crap, I didn't realize there was that type of plumbing behind the wall or that type of electricity. You have to be able to see what's in front of you. And so creating that level of intelligence to make sure that your change management and everything that you're building and designing makes sense and works in your current environment. Hopefully that helps a little bit of storytelling.
Yeah, no, absolutely it does. And as you're speaking, I'm having flashbacks to change management initiatives that didn't go as well, perhaps because we didn't have a change intelligence platform to help us anticipate where some of the changes that we're making could break things. I mean, it sounds like, in the big picture, change management and then the need for tools like change intelligence tools is really an integral part of RevOps. It really feels like a big part of what RevOps teams do is make change and implement change across an organization. So, Anastasia, maybe if you don't mind speaking a little bit to that, sharing a little bit about your thoughts about how big of a role does change management play in the life of the typical RevOps professional?
I mean, I can answer it in one word, and it's massive, isn't it? So I think the unique thing about RevOps is that you're working across many different departments, right? I think if you're in sales ops, you're only ever changing things within your little sales ops universe. You don't tend to venture out. But the meat of this particular role is that you constantly having to keep in mind, what does this thing do to this department, and what does this department have to say about the thing that you've just changed, right? So it's a constant like balancing act of different people's needs. And I guess, I mean, the biggest thing about it is that you're constantly sort of you're not just designing the process, you're not just doing the change management, but you're also, I say this, but you're also supposed to be, I know a lot of people can't find either the time or the headspace, but you're supposed to be the keeper of those blueprints as well that Brad was talking about. And a lot of the time it's just something that falls by the wayside. So yeah, definitely something, I hope someone, hears this conversation today and goes away and actually draws up their blueprints, because it makes a massive difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kenny, coming to you for some perspectives on, RevOps and change management, and, maybe even why some of the, behaviors or the preferences of RevOps folks to kind of wing things can cause us some trouble when we're trying to make big institutional changes. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I could speak to countless stories of people trying to wing things or build things directly in production of a system, and you hope things go well, and then you deploy on a Friday or at the 11th hour, and you're stuck all weekend trying to fix it. But what I would say is that RevOps, relatively speaking, is a new category or a function or responsibility that wasn't previously thought about. The responsibilities and the duties still existed. They just didn't fall solely on individuals who had to do that for the majority of their work. And it's funny because when I talk to people in RevOps, I like to relate it to a lot of the things we do in our daily lives. And I'll go back to the example that Brad made. I have never seen a house project that requires any sort of massive construction done by one person. It doesn't exist. There's not one person that's an architect, that's a structural engineer, and that's a tradesperson that can deal with electricity and plumbing and tiling and kitchen and everything. It just doesn't happen. And so I think the biggest mistake that I'm noticing that RevOps people make is feeling that they can do everything. And the reality is they shouldn't try to do everything, because you're going to put yourself in a compromising position and set yourself back. So I think if we take some analogies and perspectives from some of the industries and roles that have been around much longer than RevOps, we'll start to see that specialization in knowing where your duties are and where that line in the sand will only make you more successful, not hurt you.
Great. That's really great. All right. So I think we've established the why, right? And why this topic is relevant to RevOps professionals, why change management is such an integral part of the RevOps role. So now let's start breaking things down a little bit more in detail. And I would love to hear, coming back to you, Brad, what are some of the key kind of features, if you will, or components or attributes, trying to find the right word, that make up change intelligence? What does that term mean to you? How do you know that you're engaging in change intelligence? What are the key markers there?
Absolutely. I'll piggyback a little bit off of Kenny's analogy too, that yes, whenever you're doing a massive project, whether it be internally for a company, externally for a house build, you can't do it alone. No one is going to be an army of one that's going to try to go do this. If you try to do that, we'll check in with you in about 10 years and see if you actually got done with that project, right? We all know it's better working together with people. The reality behind that, and especially when you start to put that into a compounding motion with how we think about RevOps and how we think about software and how we implement change and how we actually try to make our go-to-market teams better, it can all boil down to a very simple scenario. And again, I always like to use real-life examples for these to help drive conversations. If we are thinking about going to...
Oh,
Brad, you went on mute, by the way.
Yeah.
You hit mute. Just as you went into the example too.
Yeah, right when I go into an example, I dropped my pen and hit the space button. Let's say that you're going in to make a change for your team. And we'll make it very simple. Everybody's familiar with this one, the opportunity stage. That field in and of itself, inside of Salesforce and inside of your entire go-to-market team, I would say is the lifeblood of most companies. I can go and create a very simple solution based off a need that my sales team has. hey, we need to add a new opportunity stage to our CRM. We have this business case that justifies it. I can put my old consulting hat back on. I can go and build that perfect solution. But if I'm not asking the right questions to everybody else in the team approach, especially to how Kenny's thinking about it, you're going to find yourself in a world of hurt. Because if you don't go and ask your finance team, hey, do you guys use this one specific field? Does that do anything to trigger a billing event perhaps, or anything that's going to help, I don't know, run commission, things of that nature? You're going to quickly find out, yeah, I forget that team's using it. Well, what about our friends over in marketing? I'm sure they're likely using that field as well, right? And so you really start to understand, yes, I can go build my solution. That is me effectively creating change and doing part of the change management side of it. But if I'm not doing that intelligently and seeing the full broader picture of how my one change can have ripple effects through the entire company, I'm going to be in for a world of hurt. Similar to how Anastasia said this, yes, we should be the keepers of the blueprint, but there are many blueprints that are out there. There's a blueprint for the electricians. There's a blueprint for the plumbers. There's a blueprint for the roofers. The same way, there is a go-to-market blueprint for marketing, sales, customer success, finance. And if we don't have all of those in one spot to make that one concise and clear decision, again, we're going to take one step forward and 10 steps back.
Yeah. Okay. That paints a really good picture of why this is so important. Kenny, do you have any other examples from your experience about where, maybe like a before and after of where having change intelligence can really make a difference in the RevOps function?
Yeah, if you've ever heard me talk on a panel before, I like to talk in analogies. And so I'm gonna paint a picture for everyone. About a couple of years ago, I had like a non-invasive knee surgery. And Brad, I don't know if you've heard this analogy before, but first thing they do is they put you on a stretcher, they move you to the operating room, they put you in the middle of the room, and then they go ahead and they start to connect you to the patient monitor, right? So I'm getting my blood pressure, my heart rate, all the things that you care about visible right there on the monitor. And now I'm not awake during the operation, so I don't know what the hell's going on, but this is where I start to cue in like Grey's Anatomy or some show like that, right? Where they're operating. And everything that happens, you have a very simple picture that is defined and visible and mainly defined similarly across the board to everyone, whether you're a nurse, you're the surgeon, it doesn't matter who you are in that room. And to me, that is precisely the answer and the problem, which is change intelligence is the issue, right? Like the issue is that there's no maturity across the role in these organizations to understand the implications of your decision or a shared set of metrics to help you determine what decisions you need to make. So the example is less so about something to do with Salesforce and more along the lines of what is your set of standard metrics that you're using to make calls or determinations of what you do or what needs to be done or what doesn't need to be done. Are you all using those same set of standards? And is it available to you and accessible to you in somewhat real time so that you're able to make the judgment call at the right time? And most organizations are not ready to do that or have the capacity to do that. And I think, to me, that in and of itself defines a healthy organization or one that's set up for success long-term. Because I think it's not, as we all know, it's not about the end goal, it's the journey, right? And Salesforce or RevOps is never done. And so can you decrease the time to completing tasks? Can you increase the time of effectiveness of your work? And you can't do that without change intelligence.
Yeah. It's really clear that metrics, data, right, is so visibility into how systems are interconnected and how various roles throughout the buyer journey are interacting with the metrics, interacting with the data, interacting with the systems. That visibility is absolutely essential to making change across an organization. But we're talking very much about large organizations. I think inherent in some of this is the suggestion that you have a RevOps team that's focused probably with multiple team members that are focused on various areas, and it's all about aligning these or disparate part of the organization to work together. But Anastasia, I know that you are a RevOps team of one, I believe. And so, talk to me about how even as a small RevOps team in a relatively small business, these ideas, this data management, change intelligence approach is relevant to you as well.
It's a different challenge. Like, there's no company that I work for. We're 15 people at the moment, so we don't have this massive sort of behemoth to move every time we want to make a change. It's a lot more agile. The issue you'll have with a small business and a team of one is that you have to set yourself up with the tools to be able to get out of your way and enable decisions to be made without you there blocking it. So when that, as a team of one, for me, the con normally come to me and they go, "Can we do Y instead of X?" I have to quickly do like a scan in my computer brain and go, "Okay, this breaks if this does this, and this changes that." So every single time I make a decision like that, it's prone to human error, right? I could get up and I can be in a very bad mood one day and just completely forget about marketing and what fields they use, right? If I have a system map and if I have everything in place that I can just go in and check, and I've actually set up like a little spreadsheet for myself with every single field in our CRM now and what it corresponds to and what it drives and what it triggers, so that I can literally go in and go Control F, this field, this will break, don't touch it. So for me, it's more, like I said, it's about getting out of my own way, because I don't want to be the reason why it's broken. Ultimately, because I have to fix it at the end of the day. It's just me.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like arguably you may need change intelligence platform and the insights and the data that they provide even more when you're a team of one, because all bucks stop with you and all decisions come through you, and so there's less finger pointing when things break, right? So you want to make sure that you get it right on the first pass. All right, I think we're getting it. I'm getting a better sense of how you guys are applying change intelligence to your businesses and how it really impacts the RevOps function. Let's go one final level deeper and start talking about a practical application that I'm sure many of the folks in the audience here have, and that is trying to get an organization to adopt a new sales process or a new sales playbook, right? Maybe there's an existing sales process that calls for, 7 stages of activity with various actions within those stages. And now we're going to shift it to maybe an 8-stage sales process and remove some of the activities around, because our data suggests we'll get better outcomes if we do this or that. There's logistical challenges there. There's technology challenges. There's training challenges. There's adoption challenges across the team. So let's use that very practical example and then talk about, all right, if I was a RevOps professional with that challenge, how would I go about tackling it, leveraging sales intelligence platforms or insights? So Brad, again, you're the guru here. So get us started with how would you approach the challenge of playbook adoption?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll first just jump into where sort of Anastasia was just alluding to. Even as an army of one, it's tough. You are supporting multiple groups. You look at some of the larger companies that might have a larger army, and they have their disciplines of, well, I'm in RevOps, but I'm also just supporting sales, or I'm in RevOps, but I'm the marketing go-to person. You're the go-to person for everybody. So that is a very important hat that you have. The reality behind that is still that effective communication behind all of it. And so I look at that as, more than anything, if we're not able to effectively communicate and be able to expose what projects we're working on, how we're working on them, how all these downstream impacts happen across the whole business, again, we're going to be it's going to be tough to actually adopt that change and get it moving. Victor, to your point, and sort of a living, breathing example, we look at this at Sonar specifically, contacts. If you think of just the contact in a CRM, that is not exclusive to one department. That's not exclusive to one playbook. That's not exclusive to one thing we do. if at the heart of every company, we are customer centric, which I would encourage everyone to think that way. You should always be putting your customers first. That information is being used across every single department, every single day, at every minute and every hour. How do we all use that collaboratively and effectively? Well, that's the challenge, isn't it? Because we can go in and make one small change to some type of automation on the contact object and completely ruin somebody in customer success's day. The same way we could someone in finance. Heaven forbid you ever touch the AP email address in Salesforce or any other system, you're gonna get your hand slapped by finance really fast. However, like we said a second ago, we all have to be customer centric. So I think the best way to think about this, especially when in change intelligence, is this collaboration and the way of proposing change, not just round peg, square holing it into your processes or your procedures or your playbook. How are you starting to collaborate and think about those changes before they happen? Actually, in a weird way, we know making changes isn't that tough. We can go in and we're all very smart. We've had enough roll up our sleeves, hands-on experience with system implementation and configuring things like Salesforce. But hey, this is still human-centric, right? We still have to all work with other people. We're not robots yet. And so the more proactive we can be, and a lot of what we coach our customers to do, especially using our platform, is, hey, propose that change in a meaningful way. Get the right stakeholders involved. We have a way of showing that spreadsheet that Anastasia was talking about of, oh, I've got all my fields and I've got how they're being used in all these different places. We automate all of that and make it dynamic, but it also allows for you to share that knowledge with the rest of your company and say, hey, contact type, I'm about to go make a serious change to that. I already know, because we've identified it in our living, breathing documentation here, that it is going to impact sales, both at the SDR level and the AE level. And it's going to impact our CSMs, and it's going to impact our marketing team. Before we even push that change out, we've got new ways of collaborating inside of that, proposing that change, and just making sure that we're all marching to the beat of the same drum. And if we're not, that's okay too. Change is hard. We know that. That's why we all have really hard jobs, and we're the leaders of these groups to make sure that we get this change done effectively. But by bringing all the right people to the table at the right time and knowing that the change that you're about to make is going to influence their day, getting their buy-in early, it saves that 10 steps backwards. You make that one step forward, and then you make another one instead of the one step forward and 10 steps back.
That's great. That's a great analogy. I like that. So, Anastasia, when we were preparing for this session, you gave an example. You shared an example about a change that you've made to like an order tracker, a real life example of making a change to a handwritten spreadsheet that was a typical part of your process. And I just, as I was thinking about that, I felt like that is exactly the type of thing that I would go into an organization as an outside consultant and say, scrap the handwritten spreadsheet. That's just slowing down your process manual. You're inserting, human error in there. Let's get rid of that spreadsheet as a step in the process and figure out maybe another way to automate it. But I would have run into some real issues if I was making that recommendation to your organization. So maybe you could talk about that practical example of how, having that insight as to how different aspects of your process are connected to each other, and being able to get ahead of potential issues can even operates in your organization.
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about my trauma for a little bit. So I used to work for a company called Iris. Iris it was a group of companies, and they had loads of different products under their belts. And one of the things that they did was when they would bring in a new product, they would keep it separate. So we ended up with like 12 different ways of processing orders. We had 12 different CRM where people I talked to in RevOps not start to cry. So I'm glad you guys are okay so far. But yeah, so one of the products was using a handwritten spreadsheet, and they actually employed a whole human was employed just for the purpose of filling a spreadsheet team. It was insane. But yeah, effectively we were trying to have as many of this like random stuff as possible and bring it all into Salesforce. And the spreadsheet was just like an eyesore. So we came in and we were like, stop it. You're not using the spreadsheet anymore. And we were just like, yeah, we've set up fields for you in Salesforce. Just go and do like what a normal a human would do, and we don't need to employ a person just to key in your orders anymore. But so we switched them over. Month end comes around. I've got finance on the phone. Where's the spreadsheet? I'm like, what do you mean? it's in Salesforce. What do you mean? What spreadsheet? And they're like, yeah, we used handwritten spreadsheet to not only reconcile orders through the CRM and through the billing systems, but also to pay people commission. And just, oh my God, everything's just gone suddenly to hell. Because we had to, so by that point, we ended the contract with the physical human who did the spreadsheet. We had to bring her back because she was the only one who knew how to update it properly. And it was traumatic. I'm still traumatized. It was a really, really bad time. But effectively, like, all we had to do before spread just to sit everyone down around the table and go, okay, who uses it? Do you use it? Yes. Okay, we won't do it then. As simple as that. Or we'll wait until the right reports are built out in Salesforce that you will trust and you can do your finance magic from. But yeah, it's just such a simple thing, and it traumatized me to the point where I will no longer do anything before I speak to everyone who might even be remotely associated with something that I'm changing. Because like, it's one thing to make one department better, but if you in that same sort of hand movement just burn a whole department down, it's not gonna be beneficial to anyone, is it? But yeah, just a small life example. Please heed my warning and talk to people before making changes.
Well, it seems like you've recovered well since that traumatic event. And so yes, I appreciate you sharing that with us. Yeah, and in my experience as well, if there's anything that creates the most drama, the most that needs to be handled with the most sensitivity, it's changes that impacts people's pay, right? I've been in situations where we're like, the lead qualification standards are letting in way too many unqualified leads, and so we're gonna tighten up the lead qualification standard for the BDR team. And then we realize, the BDRs get paid on setting qualified appointments. And so if we make it harder for them to set qualified appointments, then they're going to protest because it impacts their pay directly. So definitely been there with you, been through very similar types of experiences. All right, I want to make sure that we have enough time for Q&A, make sure that folks in the audience can ask some questions. But, before we do so, just, I want to come to you, Kenny, and we've talked a lot about how, and given examples about how change intelligence can help build stronger processes. To some extent, we've talked about how it can help with future-proof your tech stack. But I want to go a little bit deeper into that question of future-proofing your tech stack. It seems like having this kind of insight into how systems are connected to each other may help you make better decisions about what systems you need in the future. But I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I go to companies all the time and I ask them, when's the last time you did an audit of all your automation, your process builders, your flows, your fields? Never. Well, have you ever even thought about having regularly recurring audits? No, because we do that in cybersecurity, right? We appoint someone to take a look at all our login access policy requests, access to Slack and G Drive for employees, things along those lines. But we don't do them in RevOps. And same goes for technical debt in terms of managed packages. I don't think I've ever logged into a Salesforce instance greater than 5 years that didn't have at least 10 or more managed packages that were not used, but still connected to the org and creating some technical debt. And so I think what I'm noticing is, back to my example earlier, RevOps is still relatively nascent, and it simply just hasn't adopted the same practices and policies that we're leveraging across many other functions within an organization or just aspects of our lives. And so I would, my takeaway for the people here that are running CRMs or Salesforce instances is to take a step back and ask yourself, what are we doing that we're not doing? Where are the problems existing today? And can we identify or figure out how to figure out where these problems are existing or not existing today? And if you can't answer those questions, you need to take a step back, because to Brad's point earlier, The issue and what slows down every organization is not the ability to build. It's the ability to see the impact and the work you need to understand in order to determine whether to build. And so those are a couple examples of things that I look at when I talk to companies, and seldom do I ever see a company saying, oh yeah, we have proper practices in place to review our data. I mean, there are tools built like Field Trip based on the fact that people don't have these policies in place, right? To examine how little usage of your fields there are in Salesforce. That tool only exists because we don't follow best practices. So that's probably my takeaway, which is, take a step back from all the revenue data and MQL data that you have to deal with, but really ask yourself, are you set up for long-term success?
Excellent. That's a great way segue into some Q&A. Do we have any folks from the audience? Any questions from the audience?
While we're Victor, while we're waiting on that, I'll add to Kenny's thought to it, or his point on just taking that regular cadence. I think one of the things that we've realized over time that attributes to the lack of folks putting that regular step in place, like, hey, you know what? Once a year, I'm going to pause for about a week. I'm just going to assess the landscape, see what garbage we have in here, and see what I can get rid of. The reality right now behind the Salesforce-centric ecosystem, as well as the RevOps ecosystem, for better or for worse, most folks have a 18 to 24-month shelf life at companies in the RevOps space. Usually it's for the better. You see this just massive growth in the RevOps world right now. Folks are getting pulled into new opportunities left and right. So being able to retain a RevOps resource right now is harder and harder by the day. But it just goes to show you two things there. If there's that much fluidity in the role, someone typically hasn't sat there for 3, 4, 5, 6+ years and accumulated all this debt to feel their own burn of it or their own pain of it. Usually someone new is jumping in and inheriting most of that. And so they might not even know that tech debt is sitting there, that you've got tons of unused fields, what Kenny was alluding to a second ago. So I think it's also just part of the ecosystem we're in right now, which I would say is even a bigger reason to pay attention to it and be thoughtful of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't look like we have a ton of questions in the audience. I do want to maybe take this opportunity then to go a little bit deeper on this question of keeping the blueprints, right? And so, we at Winning by Design, one of the things that we try to advise our clients on is, all right, we've created this beautiful sales playbook. It's a wonderful onboarding doc for new hires, help you cut down on ramp time and make sure there's greater alignment in terms of processes at the organization. But literally the day that we launch that thing out to the rest of the team, it's already kind of like gone stale, right? Because there's a new product launching, right? There's a new market that we are pursuing. There are some learnings about how to better structure the free trial process so that it actually delivers at a higher conversion rate than before. Right. And so, these are just practical examples of things that are constantly changing and updating in an organization's process. And it's really hard to, like you said, find the time to sit down as a RevOps team or an enablement team and say, hey, like this thing needs to be updated and what's changed. So what kind of advice do you give to folks around regularly making space to keep their blueprints, to update the changes that they're making to their RevOps?
I'll go. I'll take this one, guys. It's fine. I think ultimately, think about it from a selfish perspective, right? So every time you manage a change process, you start from scratch, right? So you go around the departments and you ask the same dumb questions of what do you use this for, and then what's going to break. But if you do have a blueprint that you update and actually work on, which I'm guilty of not doing all the time, but if you were a better person and you did actually update your blueprints, then you wouldn't have to do a massive piece of work beforehand, because you already have a faint idea of how things work, right? So come at it from a selfish perspective. Don't think about the organization, but think about your poor self in 12 months' time that has to redo all this work again, and give them some love by preparing the stage for them.
Taking care of your future self. That's a good lesson. So Kenny, coming to you.
Yeah, very quickly, I added one more thing, which is I think people should incorporate into the release process documentation and management of that documentation. So often people are like, great, I'm going to do some user requirements and gather some stories. I'm going to design it in some sort of ERD or board. I'm going to build it. I'm going to test it and deploy it. And nowhere along the lines where they're like, oh shoot, I have to check to see if this changed previous documentation that I kept. So I think if you just allocated some time to documentation and told people, i.e. your bosses or other stakeholders, that you need to incorporate that in there, you're buying yourself time and you don't have to do it on the side of your desk. So I think just making sure that you're incorporating documentation and the management of that documentation or tools to use, whatever it is, into the deployment and release management process, and you'll probably have a little bit more success that way.
Yeah, I agree with that, Kenny. I think the one thing that, I tell our team internally this all the time, and it's across every single department. We all have hard jobs to do. We all run 100 miles an hour. I am selectively, purposefully giving you the right and the autonomy to run 95 miles an hour. Slow down is a better way of saying that. Everyone should slow down for a second, not so slow that you don't get things done and that change doesn't actually happen, but slow down just a little bit and reserve that extra, call it 5% of time or 5 miles per hour, to write it down. The reality behind all of us is that we move fast, we break things, especially in the world that we live in, that it's hard to collaborate and get all those changes out in front of everybody. So we see so many of our customers that look to us to help them identify some of those changes, and especially teams that have international reach. One of our customers, headquartered in Boston, has a huge team in India, and the only way they communicate effectively and make sure that there's a safety net underneath there is to catch all those changes that are happening between systems and between the way they change is using our platform for that. But without that, they would struggle to make sure that, hey, I made a change last night. I wonder if this is going to impact Anastasia's day today, considering we're in 2 different time zones. I don't get to speak with her that often. So just being mindful of the changes that you have to make. And again, slowing down. I can't preach it enough. It's okay to slow down. You're going to thank yourself later. Mistakes happen when you go too fast.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we have a couple of questions. I don't know how much time we have to go through these questions. What do you guys think? Do we have another, maybe can handle one of the questions from the audience?
Sure.
Yeah. I like this first question that Taylor asked, right? Around, and I want to rephrase it a little bit. It seems to be a question about the future of RevOps. Right. And the future of change, the role that RevOps will play in organizations, the role that change intelligence, where change intelligence will drive the RevOps function to become maybe more of a strategic one. So, Brad, obviously you have a lot of investment in the future of RevOps, the future of change intelligence. Where do you see this role, this function growing in the future? And what do you think is going to be necessary for us to achieve that?
Yeah, I think it's already happening. And for the ops folks, especially that are on this call, but they've experienced it in the past, you'll actually realize when your role is starting to shift more to that strategic side of things. And it's not a specific aha moment. It's not a specific set of questions, but it's more of a trend. When you begin seeing your organization not ask you nearly as much of how, but ask you so much more of why, you're going to be finding yourselves in more of that strategic role. So instead of the how do I go build this, or how do I go and create a new opportunity stage, you'll start getting the why questions. Hey, Brad, why did our conversion rate switch from 50% to 45% at stage 3 last quarter? Those are the questions that are truly helping drive the strategic side of the business. If somebody's asking you that, if you're CEO, CRO, VP of sales, there's a good reason for it. They're not just asking for the fun of it. They're seeing a performance metric slip. They're seeing it impact revenue. Now, you as an operations professional, take that one why and turn it into 3. I've said this to so many folks that I've mentored along the way. If they're asking why stage 3 conversion rate changed by 5%, do yourself a favor. Do 3 more layers of why. Well, did that just change quarter over quarter or year over year? Did that change for the other stages as well? Is it changing just for one rep or is it changing for all reps? You start drilling into more of the why, you're going to find yourself more at that strategic role at the table. But I think we're also just feeling and seeing this across the board in ops, which is also why we're seeing the headcounts increase. It's not nearly as much of a one discipline anymore. You're seeing broader groups tackle a big piece of the RevOps framework now.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. And I, for one, am really glad about this. I know that when I started selling many, many years ago, it was basically, here's a script, here's a customer list, good luck, right? And so now that there are so many resources that are being built, so many roles and functions that are built to support the sales team, to help identify where there are broken areas of process as opposed to broken people, which is usually where we point to when results don't meet our expectations. I'm really excited to hear that all this change is happening and the leadership that Brad, your organization is bringing to it, and what you, Kenny, and Anastasia are experiencing out there on the front line. So I think that's all we've got for today. So really appreciate the engagement, and I'm going to hand it over to Taylor.
Yes, thank you so much, Victor. Snaps, claps. I came on stage so fast, I wasn't sure if I was actually here. Well, we're done a little bit early. Get connected with the folks on our panel. All of their LinkedIns are in the chat. You can check out Sonar as well if you have any more questions for them. But I just want to give a huge thank you to Sonar for sponsoring this. Kenny, Anastasia, Brad, Victor. Hopefully I didn't miss anyone. Thank you so much for dropping your knowledge today. Love RevOps, love everything that you all are doing. And we will see you all soon. We're going to send out the recording to everyone. And that's all I have. Happy Monday and have a great week, everyone. Oh, panelists, if you click leave stage, I will see you backstage there.
Absolutely.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.